Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this Friday afternoon. I'm actually on time this time. For those of you guys who are on the live segment, I didn't get held up in a meeting, so yay me. And we have a lot of things to talk about today. So for the first segment, I'm going to focus on, Doc Rivers and his opinions on the Lakers firing Darvin Ham as from the head coaching position. And in case you guys haven't realized already or don't know, Darvin Ham is actually one of the assistant coaches for the Bucks as well, so we're definitely going to talk a little bit about that. Then in the second segment, we're going to do a quick Lakers versus Bucks preseason recap, just giving all my opinions on the game, looking at all the stats, highlighting LeBron and Bronny's performance, and Bronny's performance, I guess you could say. And Klay Thompson, that's going to be this third segment. He has a rather interesting take on an interesting perspective on his Mavericks debut. He just debuted for the Mavericks the other day, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that in the third segment. And then in the fourth segment, we're going to look at the anonymous GM poll again and look at some of the questions that they were asked and how many of them voted for a specific answer, and see what I feel about that. We also have a special fifth segment at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that if any of you guys are interested. Before I begin, however, I'd like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, burning question, something you've been dying to share, we're all ears. And if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. If Super Chat's not really your thing, then that's okay. You can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment as well. The link is gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and donations that way, and it's guaranteed to get featured on the show. Either or, whichever one you do, you could see the link popping up below the ticker right now. So that's the link for you guys. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about Doc Rivers and his opinions about Darvin Ham being fired. Now, if you guys didn't know, Darvin Ham is now an assistant coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he sits alongside Doc Rivers. Now, coaching combination of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my, this is going to be awful when the Bucks hit the postseason. I'm actually very scared for the Bucks, and it's really unfortunate because I feel like Giannis, paired along with Damian Lillard, when you know how to utilize them and you know how to make proper plays for them and you know how to do this, that, and the other with him, they can be a very solid team. They both complement their play styles rather well. And I honestly feel like that's going to be wasted with these two in a coaching position for the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's going to be very interesting how the rest of the season plays out with these two guys as coach. And I'm very scared for the Bucks. And it's really unfortunate because I really, really like Giannis. And I think he's fantastic. And I'm not as big of a fan as Damian Lillard as I was previously. I think a lot of people tend to sort of overrate him because of his 2 playoff series that he played where he hit a game winner in both of those playoff series. And people sort of give him this clutch reputation when in the reality it doesn't seem like he's all that clutch in the postseason. But they make it seem like he is, and that's sort of a big reason why I'm not a big fan of him as much. But I still do respect his game, and I still do respect what he brings to the Bucks. He's definitely brings value to the Milwaukee Bucks. However, I don't think he should have been an all-star starter last season. I think he sort of got that by default. But that's just me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But this article goes ahead and starts off with mentioning Darvin Ham's incredibly rough start to the 2023-2024 season and the rough ending to the 2023-2024 postseason. So he came off the Western Conference Finals the year prior and seemed to have built a pretty solid foundation with the Lakers, but had a lot of questionable decision making. That's a really big problem with both Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham. Their decision making, especially when it really matters. And not only that, his lack of tactical his lack of just being able to make any sort of plays as a coach is also very, very noticeable and something that he kind of dismissed. You'd look at Darvin Ham's clipboard and there would be nothing drawn on it. why even have a clipboard if you're not going to draw any player, if you're not going to do this or that or the other? It doesn't make any sense. And they lost in 5 games to the Denver Nuggets, which was a little bit better than losing in 4 games to the Denver Nuggets the previous year, but still really just not all that much of an improvement coming in from Darvin Ham in his second season. And it was enough for the organization to let Darvin Ham go. Because, I mean, let's face it, if he wouldn't get let go, I think the Lakers are doing a huge disservice to LeBron. And throughout the season, it felt like Darvin Ham's grip on the job was loosening every single day as players didn't really tune him in. Like, he essentially lost the locker room at a certain point of the season. And LeBron James even reportedly lost faith in him, perhaps the biggest indictment of his tenure with the Lakers. And when LeBron loses faith in a head coach, that's essentially like the kiss of death, for lack of a better term, honestly. Like, it's not even a kiss, honestly. It's more like a slap to the face because the best player on the court just does not like the coach. Like, there were so many times where I saw LeBron just straight up grab the clipboard from Darvin Ham and do this and do that and be the coach himself. And Ham eventually agreed to become an assistant coach for the Bucks under Doc Rivers prior to their preseason matchup on Thursday night, which we will get into in the second segment. And Doc Rivers expressed some confusion with the Lakers and the decision to part ways with Darvin Ham. And Rivers said, there's a quote from Rivers saying, "It's been great. First of all, he's been here even longer than me. He knows things that I didn't know." Shocker. He has relationships with players, another guy that can trust. Trust is so important for players, and more importantly, he deserves it. I'm not going to get into the whole thing that happened there, but he took a team to a Western Conference Finals in the following year. He won the in-season tournament, which they say we should have a lot of value on, and then they release him. It literally makes no sense, but it happens. It happens to all of us. It's part of what we do. But Darvin Ham's a coach. He should be on the sidelines, and I wanted him next to me. And really, I don't know how I don't know how Doc Rivers can look at the Lakers situation and look at the Lakers rotations and think that there was absolutely nothing wrong with Darvin Ham as the coach. And really, it sort of seems like these two coaches, they do the exact same thing when they're on the sideline, depending on what coach they are and depending on who they coach. Not really even depending on who they coach, just by looking at what they do on the sideline in every single game that they're in. It doesn't help. Like, these two, I feel like they sort of have the same mentality of the coach is just supposed to put the lineup out there and the lineup is supposed to figure it out themselves. And it does not help. It does not work in today's NBA. Like, while there's a battle going on the court, there's also a battle that should be going on in the sidelines between the coaches. Like, you have to try and outwit your coach. Try to think like your opposing coach. Try to think what the opposing coach is going to do when you throw this out. And if he does counter it, what do you throw out afterwards? Like, with Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham, it seems like when their A game and when their go-to plan doesn't work, they don't have anything else and they don't have any other backup plan in case their primary plan just falls out. And we see this every single time with Doc Rivers when he's in the postseason. And I know that didn't happen in 2008, but he's living off of that one championship that the Boston Celtics ended up winning. And they ended up winning it because they had a fantastic team, an incredibly stacked team that not many teams at the time knew how to counter. And once teams figured out how to counter it, once LeBron was able to figure out how to counter it, it ended up failing, and it ended up not working. And his failure as the Clippers head coach, and not only that, the 76ers head coach, is also going to be jotted down. And some people, Doc Rivers himself actually doesn't think that he should get much blame for those failures, mainly because certain players in certain situations failed to show up. And yes, that is very true. But when you see this and you don't do anything, whose fault is that? Like, if you're seeing that a player is struggling, if you're seeing that a lineup, a rotation that you just made is struggling, and you're just sitting there doing nothing, who is to blame? Like, the Clippers were on the verge of, well, at least the playoff series that I'm going to be primarily focusing on was the second 3-1 lead that he blew as a Clippers head coach. Like, he blew 2 3-1 leads as the Clippers head coach, and that's just a ridiculous feat in of itself. And the second time that happened, the Clippers, they held double-digit halftime leads in about every single elimination game. In Game 5, they were up as much as 18 points, I believe. In Game 6, they were up by 16 points. And then with 4 minutes left in Game 7, they were up by 12. And the Denver Nuggets ended up making the proper adjustments, and they ended up playing a lot better than the Clippers did in those final quarters in the second half of each of those games. But Doc Rivers wasn't doing anything. When he saw that his team was struggling, there was no timeout that was called. There was absolutely nothing to stop the Denver Nuggets' momentum, and therefore they continued to push through and ultimately ended up winning the series. And not doing anything is just as bad as a player on the court also not doing anything. And it's something that they just don't seem to understand. Rivers seems to obviously be standing up for a member on his coaching staff. And while he does make valid points, the fact of the matter is that the team simply could not run it back with Darvin Ham as the head coach. And between poor timeout usage, inconsistent rotations, lineup choices, and just lack of self-awareness on top of that, Ham just wasn't the right guy for the Lakers coaching position. And they're obviously hoping for a new change in JJ Redick. And I really, really hope that the Lakers can actually make this work and just get both of these head coaches out of Milwaukee. I'm sorry to say this, but it's like, I am not a big fan of Doc Rivers as a coach, and I'm not a big fan of Darvin Ham as a coach. I think they are just a detriment to the team, and it's something that's just waiting to happen. Like, you have to wait until the postseason for this to happen, because these guys, they could be great in the regular season. The regular season is completely different in the postseason when teams start taking things way more seriously and they start implementing new adjustments to try and throw you off guard, because that's half the battle. Like, sure, the players, they make up a huge part of how your team performs, but another half of the battle is the battle that goes on the sidelines. What can you adjust? What can you do? What can you throw at the other team that would have them confused on how to stop it? And what can they do about it if you throw this lineup in to get ready for a counter? All of these sort of things, they happen on the sideline, and they're just doing nothing about it. And when you're basic and when people know exactly what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier to defend. And this is sort of a reason why I feel like isolation basketball isn't a reliable method of scoring, because once teams figure out how to stop you, or once you stop yourself with your poor shooting, where do you go from there? Like, where does your offense go from there to throw the defense off guard? And especially now when teams understand better how to guard a 5-out situation and how to not only that guard an isolation situation, like throwing double teams at random, throwing rotations in there at random, and adjusting the lineup to better match up against the isolation style of play that a team might run. So that's all that I really have on this segment. Let me know in the comments if you guys are excited for Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham head coaching combination. I know I am not. So we're going to go ahead and go into the second segment where I talk about the Bucks versus Lakers preseason game and just recap all of the performances that went into this game, as well as recap what happened. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits some loser shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about the Lakers versus Bucks preseason game that ended up going down last night. It's a lot to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. Before I begin, however, I do like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. Whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question, something you've been dying to share, we're all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. If Super Chat's not really your thing, then that's also okay. You can always go ahead and use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. And let's go right ahead and get into this preseason recap. Pau Gasol, what's going on? Salute to you as well. Like and done. Appreciate that. And thank you so much for liking the live segment. Appreciate that so much. So let's go ahead and talk about this preseason game between the Bucks and the Lakers. Now, as you can see right here, this is probably like the biggest mismatch of the entire century right here. Damian Lillard guarding LeBron. Like, I mean, let's face it, that is just a mismatch that nobody wants in a single game, especially if Dame is yours. But I mean, this is a mismatch that I like to see, honestly. Like, I mean, this just makes LeBron's life so much easier. But another thing that makes LeBron's life so much easier is going up against incompetent coaches similar to Darvin Ham and Doc Rivers. So despite the Bucks having a 23 first half performance from Bobby Portis, he scored 23 points in the first half, it still wasn't enough for the Bucks to hold on to that, as the Lakers took their first win of the preseason by a final score of 107-102, thanks to a 20-0 fourth quarter run. Yes, 20-0. The Bucks didn't score a single point. Meanwhile, the Lakers scored 20 straight. That is just the perfect example of Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham as the coach. I understand that this is preseason, but this goes to show you that this shows exactly what is to come with the Bucks. This is a common thing for Doc Rivers, just constantly blowing leads, and I understand that this is a preseason game, but again, a 20-0 run is just unacceptable. And especially since, LeBron and Anthony Davis, they didn't really play all that much, even though they ended up each getting 11 points. And that honestly should be a big problem, and that honestly should make these two coaches feel a little bit tense about the situation that they're in. I mean, 20-0 fourth quarter comeback. That is not ideal in any circumstance or in any situation. It doesn't matter what kind of game it is. If you blow a lead like that and you allow them to score 20 straight, meanwhile you can't score any, what on earth are you doing? What is that? And it's really just, I can't understand the thought process on these two being a coach. It's really, really bad. It's a very bad situation that they're in. LeBron and AD, while they did score 11 each, they weren't the leading scorers for the Lakers, as that was Roy Hachimura. So essentially, a little bit of a recap from the game. In the early going, fans, they got exactly what they expected. They got Giannis in this game. He ended the game with, I believe, 20 points, so he played rather well in this preseason game. And they made the score for 4-0 quickly, forcing an early timeout from the Lakers head coach, JJ Redick. And then the Lakers responded quickly, rattling off 9 straight points thanks to Roy Hachimura and Max Christie, and they made the score 9-4 in favor of the Lakers. And then as the game and the quarter sort of went on, in the final 6 minutes and 32 seconds of the first quarter, Portis ended up going on the floor, and he scored 12 of the final 14 points to sort of end that frame, helping the Bucks trim the Lakers' lead down to 3, making the score 26-23 heading into the second quarter. And then Portis continued playing well and scored 18 of the Bucks' 20 points, including a couple of three-pointers and a dunk and a feed to Giannis to give the Bucks a 3-point lead with 10:55 left in the first half. And then the two sides, they went back and forth most of the second quarter. Neither side really gained much of an edge until the Bucks got going with some crazy plays, some highlight-level plays. Dame appeared to hurt his ankle in the first, but then he returned to start in the second quarter and nailed a bunch of three-pointers to take a 55-49 lead. And then with Giannis doing his signature Statue of Liberty dunks where he just goes up high in the sky, puts the ball high in the sky, and no one can go ahead and stop him, they ended up getting a 58-52 lead heading into the locker room. And, I mean, when Giannis goes down the basket, when Giannis is running towards the basket, it's really, really difficult to stop him. And then Doc Rivers decided to pull the plug on the starters to begin the second half and sort of, allow the rest of the players in the rotation to get a chance. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really don't have anything wrong with that. I don't think Giannis and Dame should even be playing in the preseason anyway, but that's a completely different story. And, excuse me. So the Lakers starters, so AJ Green, Pat Connaughton, Tyler Smith, these are not Lakers starters, so I apologize for that mistake. And Pezekniks, forgive me if I completely botched that last name. They went up against most of the Lakers starter minutes with except for LeBron and Max Christie. And in their stead, Johnson showed some flashes of raw potential. He showed a lot of potential for the Bucks in their rotation. And the score was 68-65 with 6 minutes and 55 left to go, and then the Bucks continued to expand their lead, getting up to 8 points heading into the fourth, making the score 82-74 after a layup from Liam Robbins. And then both coaches threw out more of their young players, such as Andre Jackson, Stanley Umude, forgive me if I messed up that last name, Ryan Rollins, and they got a lot of action on the Bucks, and not to mention the Lakers lineup also got a lot of action. Milwaukee continued to expand their lead of their biggest night at 15 points with Rollins' three-pointer forcing another Lakers timeout. And Maxwell Lewis had some impressive moments with the Lakers as well, scoring 5 of the 8 straight points for the Lakers to cut Milwaukee's lead down to 7 with 7:26 to play. Then the Lakers started to mount the comeback, and they went on a 20-0 run to retake the lead 94-89. And Quincy Olivari caught fire for the Lakers as he scored 6 points in short order and hounded Bucks ball handlers in the entire fourth quarter. And the Lakers, they were able to keep Milwaukee at bay as they held on to the win. And again, when a team goes on a 20-0 comeback, or a 20-0 run, in the fourth quarter, the most important quarter of any game, that is a serious, serious problem, in my opinion. And just looking at the rest of the box scores, because I'm sure you guys are very interested to how Bronny James played in this game. Yeah, he didn't score any points. And that's really, I'm sorry, this isn't really looking as much as a surprise for me anymore. Bronny James is just, he's just not it. He's just not it now. Right now, his shooting is so inefficient, and his defense is right now the only highlight of his play. And I understand he only played 6 minutes, but he was also able to get up 4 shots, and he made absolutely none of them. And I'm just, I'm very, very concerned for Bronny and the Lakers and how he's going to play for the rest of the season. And again, the best player and the leading scorer was Roy Hachimura. Dalton Knecht had 13 points. However, he did shoot 5 for 16 and shot 2 for 10 from 3. So he's definitely going to have to work on his efficiencies there. But again, this is a very big win for the Lakers. They were able to make a comeback, and then they were able to close out with that comeback. So really, the Bucks, they made the Lakers like they were really capitalizing on the Lakers' turnovers in this game, especially in the first half. And with the starters in during the first half, the Bucks scored 14 points off the 8 Lakers turnovers. And that's really that seems to be where they're getting their most offense and their most effectiveness going in as of right now. And really, when you have good defense, you can allow this, you can do this. Like, you can definitely capitalize on another team's mistakes and benefit them for your own. So, again, this is just a very disappointing loss if you are the coach. Now, for the players, I don't really think there's much to blame because, again, it's really just not the starters out there and not players that you really expect to get much minutes in the rotation. So this is a coaching blunder more so than it is a player blunder, in my opinion. So that's all that I really have to say about this second segment. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the third segment where I talk about Klay Thompson and his debut for the Mavs. And we'll be right back after the short break, so be sure to stay tuned for that.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be doing another preseason recap, this time of the Dallas Mavericks' matchup against the Utah Jazz. And they went up against, Klay Thompson. He ended up making his debut for the Dallas Mavericks. And again, the score was also the exact same as the Lakers. I wonder how often that happens. And the Utah Jazz ended up winning 107-102 in this matchup. Klay Thompson, he was able to get some minutes in this game, and he did make a three-pointer for the Dallas Mavericks. That's one of the plays that I did see from him. He ended up scoring 10 points on 18 minutes, and ended up shooting 3 for 9 from the field. However, he was 3 for 5 from 3. And again, that's really Klay Thompson's strong suit, being able to shoot the three ball rather efficiently. So this past offseason, the four-time NBA champion, as he would love to remind every single one of you guys, 4 rings, that's the man, 4 rings, Mr. Klay Thompson. Everyone knows that, one of the more infamous things that he's known for is the fact that he brags about having 4 championships to a lot of NBA players, especially when they either disrespect him or they do this or they do that. And he's joining the Dallas Mavericks after 13 years with the Golden State Warriors. And obviously with this move, the 34-year-old, he's joining a squad that's fresh off of an NBA Finals appearance against the Boston Celtics, where they unfortunately ended up losing. And Thompson now has to make up one of the most, this trio that they have with Luka, Kyrie, and Klay. It is one of the more interesting trios that they have in the NBA, and naturally there's going to be a lot of anticipation as he's going to prepare for this season with Dallas. And obviously Klay Thompson saw his first on-the-court action with the Mavericks in this game. I personally didn't want him to suit up in any preseason game just off of the fear that there's a chance that he could get injured And, I mean, you definitely don't want Klay Thompson, a player that you just acquired, to get injured in a preseason game, especially with his history given injuries like off of the court. And, I mean, when he had a huge injury that sidelined him for a majority of the season, he ended up suffering another leg injury on top of that, and it ultimately sidelined him for even longer than the Warriors anticipated. And in the end of the day, it ended up working out for them. They still ended up winning a 4th championship with Klay Thompson, but still, you can argue that the injury history of Klay Thompson is just only getting worse. And like I said before, he played 18 minutes, went 3 for 9. However, he did shoot a very efficient 3 for 5 from the three-point line, and also was able to tally 3 assists as well. After the game, Klay Thompson spoke about making his Mavericks debut, comparing it to his rookie season, ironically. And there's a quote from him saying, not really. It's human nature when you've been somewhere for so long. You're so familiar with that environment after a decade plus of being there, and now being here, it literally felt like my rookie season all over again. And I mean, he has a very unique perspective on this, on his debut for a new team. Like I don't think most people would consider themselves a rookie when they have 4 NBA championships. I think they would mainly view themselves as a veteran of the game, trying to adapt to a new offensive system is just a normal thing. Like, I don't really think that's like, it's a very interesting perspective. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this perspective. So, the expectation is that Thompson is going to start for the Mavs as their small forward, and though he is traditionally a shooting guard, he is more than capable of moving into another role in the lineup, especially when you have ball handlers like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And in a league where it's very, very positionless, moving Klay Thompson at the small forward is really, it's not a difficult thing to do. Not to mention, the Mavericks can be very flexible with how they utilize Luka and Kyrie. You can have Luka at point, Kyrie at shooting guard, and then Klay Thompson at small forward. Or, like if we're talking about positions, because I personally think this is a rather positionless league, you can also have a lineup that has Kyrie at point, Klay Thompson at shooting guard, and then Luka at small forward, because a lot of people still consider Luka at small forward, as we saw in the anonymous GM poll where they were voting on who the best small forward in the NBA is. Like, Luka is that point forward kind of player, so he can definitely play the 3 if you want Klay Thompson at the 2 and have Kyrie Irving at the 1, and nothing really would change. And it's like, again, it's so positionless that you could put either one of them at either one of those positions and it would be just fine, because the defense would be able to, it works both ways. Because yes, while it could work in your way adjusting the lineup, I mean, the defense won't really see all that much affecting them, because they can still say, all right, your matchup is this guy, your matchup is that guy, your matchup is that guy, and we're going to have to switch on screens and all of that, you know. It could work as an advantage for an offense, but it could also work as an advantage for the defense and figuring out, you know, who should be on who. So it's not really like it's not a detriment. Like, it sort of cancels each other out. And so, while not the same player as he was with the Warriors dynasty, Thompson is still rather effective, in my opinion. And a lot of people, they might clown him for not really being able to shoot all that efficiently in the most important game of the Warriors season last year when they ended up losing to the Kings. But last season he averaged 17 points and shot 38% from 3. And for reference, only Dante Exum, 49% on 2 3-point attempts per game, and Kyrie Irving, 41% shot better from the 3-point line than Klay Thompson in that last season. So his perimeter game is going to help take a lot of pressure off of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, especially if he even is like a fraction of the player that he was when he was on Golden State. Sometimes he could go on really hot streaks and huge runs. He actually did that when he came off of the bench for the Golden State Warriors. I guess he was really mad that he got benched, so once he got into the game, he just shot the lights out of the other team. It was absolutely incredible. And he's had these kinds of performances for, he's highlighted for a lot of these hot streaks. And he is a splash brother for a reason. And Thompson, he's not the same defender as he was before the injuries, but I'd say he's a pretty solid defender. Like, again, not the same, nowhere near the same, because he was considered to be one of the best two-way players in the entire league, only behind, I want to say, maybe Kawhi and Paul George, arguably. And even then, his defense was still one of the more impactful things that he had on the Golden State Warriors roster, especially during that dynasty run, because, like, while the Warriors were mainly notorious for their offense and shooting three-pointers, one of the things that is a little bit underrated for them was also just the amount of defense that they actually were able to play. Kevin Durant was a much better defender when he was on Golden State, thankfully, because he only had to he didn't have to focus all that much on offense. It was super simple on offense for him. And not only that, Draymond Green, also the best defender on the team at the time. And then you had Klay Thompson being able to guard the whichever point guard might be a mismatch against Stephen Curry. So it's like the lineup really, really worked, and it was incredibly good on both sides of the court. And again, like I said before, he's still a rather capable defender and could end up boosting the team on both sides of the court. Furthermore, one thing that is never going to go away is Klay Thompson's finals experience. And throughout his career, he won 4 championships, as I mentioned before, and as he's probably going to mention during the span of the season. He made 6 NBA finals, and Klay Thompson is also one of 3 players currently on the Mavericks with a championship, the other 2 being Kyrie Irving in 2016, obviously, and Markieff Morris in 2020 for the Los Angeles Lakers. And coincidentally, both of those players ended up winning a championship with the help of LeBron James. Coincidentally. And, of course, Klay Thompson, he sort of did the opposite. He ended up beating LeBron in the postseason to win his championships, a majority of his championships, not 3 of his 4 championships were won by beating LeBron James. It could have been 5 if Steph Curry didn't end up choking, but that's a completely different story. Let's go LeBron. But again, like, this level of experience is definitely going to help the Dallas Mavericks, especially in the postseason, where I feel like that's something that they sort of lacked. And while Kyrie did have the finals experience, he didn't really play all that well in the finals. I mean, the Boston Celtics seemed to be able to know exactly what Kyrie Irving was, they were able to slow him down, I should say. They were able to slow him down enough to where it was basically only Luka being effective in the finals. And again, whenever they figure out how to stop one of your key components on offense, you have to have some sort of backup plan for that. And this preseason debut for Klay Thompson, again, I don't think he should have played. Excuse me. I don't think he should have played in this game, but that's a completely different argument right there. And just highlighting some other players and their performances in this preseason game. Prosper ended the game with 10 points and 10 rebounds. Spencer Dinwiddie ended with 10 points as well. Kyrie Irving in 17 minutes ended up scoring 12 points and shot 6 for 11 from the field. Didn't make a three-pointer, but again, that's not going to be a problem in the regular season. Lauri Markkanen, however, ended the game with 26 points and also acquired 7 rebounds, went 9 for 19 from the field, and 4 for 7 from 3. Another notable player for the Utah Jazz was Keontae George. He ended the game with 14 points. Did not get a single assist, surprisingly, but also tallied 3 rebounds as well. And again, it was a rather close game. Sensabaugh, however, didn't really play all that well. Ended up going 2 for 11 from the field. Colin Sexton went 5 for 12 from the field for 12 points. But still, you win by a mile, you win by an inch. A win is a win for the Utah Jazz. And the Mavericks, they did not shoot well from 3 at all in this game. And that was really the big difference maker. They shot 30% as a team, 8 for 26 overall. And again, that's not a winning formula, shooting that inefficiently from 3. But I digress. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the 4th segment where I talk about the anonymous GM poll and I look at some interesting sort of picks for some of the random questions that these GMs needed to answer. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned if you're interested.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to continue looking at the anonymous GM poll, and we're going to see what questions they were asked and what was the more popular answer for these questions. So, for example, the GMs were asked which team is the most fun to watch. And to that, they answered the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers ended up receiving 37% of the vote, and as a result, were in first place. And I could see this. I could see a lot of people finding enjoyment out of the Pacers. Simply put, there's never a dull moment in the Pacers' offense, primarily in their offense. And in a league that really values offensive skill and offensive talent, they're honestly one of the more perfect teams to watch if you're really looking for some enjoyment. Like I said, there's never a dull moment. This is one of the more fast-paced teams. Ironically, they're the Pacers. One of the more fast-paced teams in the entire NBA. They move quick, and they try to get up as many shots as they possibly can. And I mean, you see it in a lot of these games. Whenever they're in an inbound, they do not jog down the court. They run down the court and they take advantage of a player wide open for three, or teams being slow to get back on defense. It was a very, very popular thing. Tyrese Halliburton would sometimes heave the ball down the court to try to force difficult situations for the defense, and they move very, very fast. It's kind of ironic that their name is the Pacers because they really move at a very, very high pace. Another team that ended up receiving a huge portion of the votes was the Oklahoma City Thunder. I believe a huge part of that is because of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, along with Chet Holmgren as well. I do have to give respect to Chet because he is also a very good talent in the in the NBA as well, and a pretty solid option coming in for the team, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, when SGA isn't really doing all that much on the offensive side. Because again, it's it's rather tough just relying on SGA, as we saw in the postseason when the Dallas Mavericks were able to dispose of the Oklahoma City Thunder, mainly due to their lack of experience. The Denver Nuggets ended up receiving 10% of the votes, tied with Golden State. Again, I think a huge reason why is because of watching Jokic and watching Steph do their thing. And then at number 5 is the Boston Celtics, that ended up receiving 7% of the votes. And, I mean, the Pacers receiving the most votes, I have no real problem with that. Again, they do move really fast, and it's there's never a dull moment. And HR in the chat, Warriors can shoot. Yes, I saw that that preseason game that they played when they made 23 three-pointers. Yes, they can shoot. If you're interested in what I thought about that game, then I did that segment. I believe I did it yesterday. So you can look at the basketball podcast and you can see what I had to say about that. And let's continue down the list. Next, the GMs were asked which team has the best home court advantage. They answered the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets received 47% of the vote. And I can see that. I mean, the Denver fans are very loud, and they really they know what it's like to they know what you need in order to gain a home court advantage. They know that boost that that they get when they play in the home court. And another team that was the second team was OKC, ended up receiving 17% of the votes. Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks ended up getting 13% of the votes, which is rather surprising. I expected their votes to be a little bit higher, especially the Knicks, because I mean, while I do agree that there is a lot of pressure playing in the Garden, especially as a Knicks player, that home court advantage that they end up getting with the crowd screaming and all of this, and like the crowd saying this, the crowd saying that, the crowd just being in favor of the Knicks, I really like. There's really a lot of hardcore Knicks fans out there, and they're so diehard and they're so hardcore that it's like they took over the Philadelphia 76ers stadium. It was crazy to me because, like, again, a lot of fans, they weren't a lot of Philly fans, I guess they didn't really reserve a ticket for the game, but since New York and Philadelphia, they're relatively close to each other. Like, it's really, you could take a train all the way down to Philadelphia and you could be at the game, no problem. And a lot of Knicks fans, they took to that and they helped give the team the advantage that they needed in the postseason. It was so bad that Philadelphia fans ended up buying tickets for Philadelphia fans just so that wouldn't happen. It was a shot to the heart, really. And I'm very surprised that they didn't receive more of the votes, but still they're tied at third place, which isn't really all that bad. The Jazz ended up getting 7% of the votes, and the Kings got 3% of the votes. Again, I would have expected a little bit more from the Kings, especially now that they're good, but that's besides the point. I don't really have a problem with the Denver Nuggets being ranked a little bit higher than everyone else. I'm just more or less surprised at the fact that the Knicks didn't receive more votes, but that's just me. Now, the next question that I have here, or the next question that they were told to answer was, which team's level of success this season is the toughest to predict? And that is, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers. They ended up receiving 17% of the vote. And I agree with the GMs on this one because, yes, they do have the exact same roster that they had last year that didn't really do all that much. However, there is also some argument that Darvin Ham was a big reason why that team didn't really do that much. The rotations that he was putting in, all of these experiments and weird stuff, and the lack of doing stuff was a big problem with the Lakers and a big reason why they didn't really have all that much success. However, on the other side, you got LeBron James and you got Anthony Davis. So you could be a very solid team and a very successful team with those two at the helm and those two at the number 1 and the number 2 option. We've seen it done before. They can do it again. And again, when you have a team, when you're a team that has LeBron, especially in his prime, because let's face it, he's still playing the best basketball of his career to this day. And when you have a LeBron that is championship ready, it's like you never count him out. You just don't count him out. It's foolish to count him out early. I've never counted LeBron out until he's officially out. And there's just too much experiences that I have where I feel like this team is better than the overall team that LeBron has, and somehow LeBron just does LeBron things and ends up winning. Say LeBron again. Imagine. But again, they received 17% of the votes, and it also has to do with the fact that JJ Redick has no coaching experience, so we have no idea exactly how well he's going to be as the Lakers head coach. I personally think anything is better than Darvin Ham, and with the way that JJ Redick seems to approach the game, I'm feeling rather confident on his head coaching career for the Lakers. Now, again, they received 17%, so Houston ended up receiving 13% of the votes, along with the Pelicans that also received 13% of the votes. And I can understand why we're not sure exactly the success on the Houston Rockets. They are a rather young team trying to compete in a very top-heavy Western Conference. Actually, not even a top-heavy, a very dominant Western Conference. And with the young talent that they have, Jalen Green's inconsistencies, and we're not exactly sure how well Sengun is going to develop, there are a lot of questions, and I totally understand the concern. Not to mention the Pelicans, who also have made a lot of off-season moves, acquiring DeJounte Murray, not having a rim-protecting center. It's going to be rather interesting to see how the lineup meshes. And fourth is the Phoenix Suns with 10%, and then tied at fifth is the Dallas Mavericks and 76ers with 7%. And I don't really know why I understand, the 76ers concerns, like having a new player like Paul George on the roster. There's going to be a lot of questions, and not to mention the history that the 76ers have in choking. There's also going to be concerns about that. So not a really big issue for these lists and the voting, in my opinion. However, this one I got a problem with. So they were asked which player is the best passer. They voted Nikola Jokic. No problem with that either. Like, he received 70% of the votes, and I understand why. He's a phenomenal passer. He's a great playmaker. The biggest problem that I have here is that LeBron wasn't even considered. Like, no one voted for LeBron in this category. Like, they voted for Luka, understandable, no problem with that. Tyrese Halliburton, a little bit debatable, but again, no problem with that. And then there's Josh Giddey at 4th. Are you serious? You really think that Giddey is a better passer than LeBron James? Like, what is that? That does not make any sense. None whatsoever. And it's like, how? How on earth does that work? LeBron is easily one of the smartest basketball players in the entire NBA. You can make the argument that Jokic is a little bit smarter and playing a little bit smarter now. I have no problem with that argument given how great Jokic's passing has proven to be throughout the span of his career. But everyone else here, aside from Luka Doncic, honestly, like, really? Not a single vote for LeBron in this category? Not a single vote for LeBron in his passing in this category. Like, people are going to recognize him, and he's going to be known as a scorer, it's really difficult to figure out exactly what LeBron is going to be known as, to be honest. Is he going to be known as a scorer, or is he going to be known as a passer? Because to me, his passing is probably the best part of his game. And again, his scoring is there, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, oh, LeBron wasn't that much of a scorer, he's a pass-first kind of player. And it's like, you could argue that that's his best skill set. And the fact that he received none of the votes in this voting, the fact that he didn't even receive one in, the players for consideration for this, and Josh Giddey got a vote, got 3% of the vote, that makes no sense. I am appalled at this right here. This makes absolutely no sense. LeBron is by far a better passer than Josh Giddey, without a doubt. Halliburton, again, that's up for debate. I have no problem if you think that, even though I personally don't really think that Halliburton is a better passer than LeBron. Luka Doncic, again, that's another respectable take. And Jokic, of course, he speaks for himself. But Josh Giddey? Really? I have no idea what on earth the GMs were thinking, but that's all that I really have for this segment, and that's really the biggest problem that I had in the segment. Just the fact that LeBron didn't even get considered as one of the league's best passers, despite numerous times that he's proven that true. But I digress. So that's all that I have to say in this 4th segment. Now we're going to go ahead and go into the 5th segment, where I give a quick preseason recap of all of the games that went down. Well, the rest of the games that went down, because we ended up covering the Lakers, Bucks, Jazz, and Mavericks game. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the 5th segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this 5th segment, we're going to be doing a quick preseason recap. But before I do that, I actually have a question for those of you guys who are tuning into the show. If you were a GM and you had the option to draft any player in the history of basketball, who would you draft first? I think that's a very interesting question, and I literally just saw this while I was scrolling through my phone, and I thought it would be a very interesting question to ask. Who would you draft first if you were a GM and you had the option of picking any player in the history of basketball? I think that's a very interesting question. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of that question, and let me know who you guys would take as your number one pick. Again, it can be any player from any era at any position. Who would be the first player that you pick? So while you guys are going on thinking about that, I'll go ahead and recap the rest of the games that ended up going down in the preseason matchup. So the Pacers ended up beating the Cavs 129-117. And obviously, like I said before, the Pacers, they're a very high caliber, high paced offense. It is both good for the team. It's also a little bit bad for the team, mainly because I just don't like their defense and, just the attention to detail that they put on defense. They pay more attention on offense and they're more focused on offense. And I feel like their lack of defense is going to be something that hurts them in the long run. And I always think that. But again, we'll see exactly how well their defense improves or how much worse it gets because we have no idea. But I feel rather confident in their offense staying as high-powered as it always has been, given with Tyrese Haliburton on the team. Now, for the Pacers, the leading scorer was Benedict Mathurin, ended the game with 25 points in 19 minutes, ended up getting 3 rebounds as well. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3. Very efficient game coming in from him. And then there's obviously Miles Turner, who ended up going 5 for 10 from the field and ended up scoring 12 points as well. Now, other notable players, Jarris Walker ended the game 12 points with going 3 for 3 from the field. Aaron Nesmith ended up going, or Nesmith, forgive me if I messed up that last name, ended up going 3 for 4 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3 with 10 points. And let's see, TJ McConnell, the defender, the guard that plays defense on the team, 4 for 10, ended up getting 8 points. Not a very solid performance, but again, it's like he's mainly there for his defense and things of that nature. And then James Wiseman, who was recently acquired by the Pacers, ended up going 4 for 6 and ended with 8 points as well. And really just overall a very solid game coming in from the Pacers. As a team, they ended up shooting 41% from 3, ended up taking 39 3-pointers, and they also shot 49% from the field. So, very efficient offense coming in from this team. And now for the Cavs, obviously Donovan Mitchell wasn't going to play in this game. It would be, in my opinion, I don't think any starter should be playing any minutes in these preseason games. And Ty Jerome ended up being the leading scorer for the Cavs. However, he only ended with 15 points on 5 for 14 from the field. And let's see, Craig Porter Jr. ended up going 6 for 10 from the field for 14 points as well. Jarrett Allen ended up going 6 for 8 with 13 points. And let me go ahead and see, Georges Niang ended up going 5 for 9 with 12 points. And again, not really much notable performances coming out of the team. It was more so of a team game that the Cavs ended up playing. The big difference between the two teams was, of course, 3-point shooting percentage. Cavs shot 35% from 3 compared to the Pacers' already mentioned 41% from 3. On top of the fact that the Pacers ended up taking more 3-pointers than the Cavs, yet they still shot at a higher percentage than them. That's not winning basketball. That's not going to have you winning a game. And the Cavs, they ended up shooting 50% from the field, which is all right, yes. But again, the Pacers, they ended up taking more. They ended up getting more possessions, ended up getting more shots especially in the field, around the field, not just the 3-point line. And they were still able to keep up with the efficiency that the Cavs were shooting at. They shot 49.5% from the field compared to the Cavs' 50.5% from field. So literally just a 1% difference. Meanwhile, they were able to get more possessions. So that's really the big story of the game, the fact that the Pacers, they just had more possessions and they were still able to shoot just as efficiently as the Cavs were. And like I said before, there were no real notable performances coming in from the Cavs, and nobody really outshined anyone. It was more of a team game in this loss for the Cavs. So not really much that needs to be talked about here. And then in the next team that ended up playing, and the next game that happened was the Charlotte Hornets going up against the Grizzlies. The Hornets ended up winning 119-94, and LaMelo Ball ended up playing rather well, in my opinion. I mean, LaMelo wasn't in this game. It was actually a previous game where LaMelo Ball was playing, and he made a couple of three-pointers, so I made a mistake there. That's my bad. However, for the Hornets, Brandon Miller played really well. He ended up playing 24 minutes in this game, recorded 22 points, as well as being able to shoot 8 for 13 from the field and 6 of 8 from 3. Trey Mann was also a solid option. 8 for 13 from the field, 19 points. And let's see, who else played really well? Salon for the Hornets as well got 13 points, 5 for 12 from the field. Bridges, I'm not a big fan of Bridges, but ended up going 3 for 9 from the field and ended up scoring 11 points. And the team, they shot 50% from the field and 41% from 3. And that was the big difference maker, as I've alluded to previously. If you're able to shoot rather efficiently from 3, chances are you're going to win the game. And the Grizzlies took 42 three-pointers, but they only ended up making 14 of them. Meanwhile, the Hornets shot 43 three-pointers, made 18 of them. So it's no mystery why the Hornets were able to win in this game, as the Grizzlies shot 33% compared to the Hornets' 41%. And from the field, the Grizzlies were also very inefficient, going 30 for 82 and 36%, while the Hornets ended up going 46 for 92 and 50%. And for the Grizzlies, again, there weren't really that many notable players that ended up getting a lot of minutes in this game, or ended up playing rather well in this game. The only real highlight was Desmond Bane, who ended the game with 17 points, 7 of 13 from the field. Zach Edey played 22 minutes in this game, ended up having 10 points and 5 rebounds. I expect a lot of things coming from him in this rookie season with Ja Morant. I think the attention that Ja Morant draws around the rim is going to open up this 7-footer for a lot of lobs and a lot of very explosive plays and a lot of explosive dunks to come out for the center. And there's also Jay Huff. He ended up going 5 for 10 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. And Jalen Wells for the Grizzlies as well, 4 for 12 from the field, along with 12 points. And again, just not a very solid performance coming in from the Grizzlies overall. So that's all that I have to say, and that's the only recap that I have. Obviously, the Thunder ended up beating the New Zealand Breakers, because let's face it, the Breakers, they're not going to beat a single NBA team. I'm sorry to say this, but that's just how it is. There are a couple of preseason games that are going on today. Unfortunately, the Orlando Magic game had to be canceled, I believe, due to the hurricane that's going on over there. So hopefully the players and hopefully everyone down there in Florida can stay safe. If any of you guys are over in Florida, or know any family members in Florida, I hope they're safe, and I hope they stay safe, because this is an act that is like something that we can't really control. We can never control Mother Nature. And again, I just hope that all of you guys stay safe out there if you are around that area, or going to be in an area where that hurricane is going to be in. So that's all that I really have to say about the preseason games that went down. The preseason games that are happening today: Kings are going up against the Warriors, Raptors are going up against the Wizards, 76ers are going up against the Timberwolves, Pistons are playing the Suns, and the Trailblazers are going to play in their first preseason game, and they play against the Clippers. So those are the matchups that are going to happen, and that's all that I have to say about the preseason recap. So thank you so much for tuning in, and a little bit of an update for the basketball world that's going on. The WNBA Finals format is going to change to Game 7 in this next coming season, and also the Liberty ended up blowing a huge lead in the first game of the finals. I'm sure none of you guys ended up seeing that, because not only was there football going on, but there was also the Yankees playing baseball that was going on. And you know, obviously, I'll let you guys choose and figure out which sport ended up getting the most views. Spoiler alert, wasn't the WNBA, because Caitlin Clark isn't playing. So that's all that I really have to say. That's all the updates that I have for you guys in the basketball world. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, burning question, something you've just been dying to share. We're all ears, and if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, then that's okay. You can always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. That's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. Stay safe, have a wonderful weekend, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of